recording is on even though she did not give us her lovely introduction.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Give me one second.
Somebody's watching.
Sorry, just submitting. Right. And that should be-
There's Frank. Frank's on.
Yep, you're good. Mr. Travellini.
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Thank you.
I see you, George. Thank you. Mr. DiGiovanni.
Here.
Mr. Arvana.
Here.
Mr. Walter.
Here.
Mr. Hurst.
Here.
Ms. Christie. Here. Chairwoman Betcha.
Here.
And I'm here too.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Bedminster Township Land Use Board was filed with the Township Clerk, sent to the Burgersville News and the Courier News and to all subscribers, and posted at the Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Bedminster, New Jersey, on January 6, 2022.
Please stand for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I just want to remind the board that the microphones pick up everything we say. So don't talk about personal things. The mics will pick it up, and the personal conversations are not good either because it picks those up, and also it distracts from not only the audio, but other people that are trying to listen to whatever the witness is saying. If you have a question, ask the witness because your question might be the same as somebody else's question.
Are these push to talk or not?
No, they're on. They're on.
Everybody is on, they are on.
They are on.
You can't turn them off.
You can't turn them off. They're
Well,
on.
we can.
So
You
just,
can, if you want to flip the switch underneath and you want to remember to push to talk, you can do, we can do that option.
Okay.
but they're on. So
Yeah,
just
but
be
the other
careful.
mic, the other mic will probably pick it up, because that's what she's getting at.
Yes.
It's all recorded,
Right,
and it's all part of the record,
it is. So
even if
just,
you didn't want it to be.
you're right. So I think some people heard some of personal conversations last month, so let's be a little more careful about it. Okay? All right, I'll open it up to the public, if anybody has anything they would like to talk about that's not on the agenda.
There's no public online and it doesn't appear to be anyone in the audience.
Okay, then we can close it to the public, and we can ask for a motion to approve our minutes from April 7th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from April 7th. Tim Walter.
Second, Jeff.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? I think so too. I think so. Yes? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. We have a resolution for Siegelman Estate, so we need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
Second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Travellini.
Aye.
Mr. Rodriguez. You're muted. Thank you. Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. DiGiovanni.
Aye.
Mr. Urbana.
Aye.
Mr. Walter.
Aye.
Mr. Hurst.
Aye.
Ms. Christie. Aye. Chairwoman Betcha.
Aye. Motion's approved. Okay, we have Goldman. Paul, you want to talk to us?
This is a variance application for lot coverage. I did a complete review on April 6th, and the schedule will be heard for June 9th.
All right.
The key variance application.
Okay. So we can go into our hearing. We have 405 Main LLC.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, board professionals. Frederick Zelli, Bisogno, Leffler, and Zelli on behalf of the applicant, 405 Main LLC. It's a unique property. You're aware of it, familiar with it as the Far Hills Pharmacy property. It's unique because it has two different zones on the same property, which dates back to 1994. For the record, it's tax blocks 32, lot 7. It's 405-411 Main Street in terms of street address, and it's located in both the VN and your R3 zones. What is being proposed this evening is the installation of a 2-bay detached garage in the far rear corner of the property. Doing so will require removal of a few parking spaces, as will be discussed in testimony. As I indicated, dating back to 1994, this was before this board in order to increase the number of parking spaces, actually to go beyond what was required and to have bulk variances in accordance to permit those parking spaces. At the time, the business of the pharmacy was very different. This was largely pre-internet, certainly pre-COVID, and people's shopping skills and preferences have changed quite a bit. So Mr. Katz, the principal, will testify as to the need or lack thereof for the full number of parking spaces and why we can afford to get rid of a few in order to install this garage. The reason I bring up the two zones is because it's extremely important as to this application. If this entire property were in the VN, we would need little or no variance relief. But because this particular corner of the property is in your R3 zone, your setback requirements are extremely different. And even though to the naked eye, anybody looking at this property would think it's part of the VN, since technically this building will be in your R3, we need the relief. So just to set it forth, we have a rear setback requirement. 10.10 feet is required, where 50 feet is required in the R3. Only 10 is required in the VN. So again, if this were a VN completely, we wouldn't need that relief. Side yard setback, we're proposing 22.54 feet, where 40 is required in the R3. But again, only 10 would be required. We'd be well sufficient if this were considered a VN property entirely. Distance between the buildings. So this building that's there now is unusual. You have the pharmacy in the first part of the building, but attached to it is a single-family residence, which Mr. Katz and his family live in and have since he was running the pharmacy, but I'll let him describe that in his testimony. So the distance between the proposed garage and that building is 31.55 feet. In the R3 zone, 50 feet is required. In the VN zone, only 10 feet is required. So you see a repeating theme here, basically. Impervious coverage is significant. There was a variance granted in 1994 permitting 62.65 for the entire lot. By comparison, 50% is permitted in the VN, 15% is permitted in the R3. Basically, in 1994, this board just viewed the entire property as a whole. They didn't make that distinction between the two zones, and when Mr. Madsen, our engineer, testifies, he'll testify that we're doing the same thing, approaching it from the same perspective this evening. So that, in a nutshell, is what the application's about. It is just the installation of this detached garage. Again, most of the variance relief would not be required at all, except for this odd situation with the zoning. By the way, when the R3 portion was attached, which was also back in 1994 era, it was basically to square off the back of the property. So, you know, in a perfect world, what you would have now would be entirely in the VN, but it's not. There certainly wasn't a change in zoning done as part of that minor subdivision lot line adjustment application. So that's really what brings us here this evening. We have two witnesses, Ira Katz, who's the principal of the applicant, and as I said, resides on site and has been there for many, many years. Mr. Madsen, our engineer from APCAR Associates, who will be giving our engineering testimony.
Okay, thank you.
If anyone has any questions for me.
I'll swear them both in case they have to go out of order at all.
Okay.
So gentlemen, if you want to come forward and you can stand by the
We'll
mic.
switch chairs for
Yeah.
cover reasons.
You have to speak into the mic, so it's good to stand, I guess, by the mic. We don't seem to have another mic. You have one of those little ones?
It's not.
Oh, okay. So, gentlemen.
They could put it on the table.
Yeah, we put it on.
Oh, yeah, you can move that one down to the table and both sit. But
stuff.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
You're raising your hand, so gentlemen, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, and please state your names and addresses.
Ira Katz, 411 Main Street, Bedminster, New Jersey.
Jim Madsen, MAD-SEN, professional engineer, Apgar Associates, 13 DeMont Place, Far Hills, New Jersey.
Thank you, gentlemen, and the board recognizes and accepts James Matson's qualifications as a professional engineer. And please go ahead, gentlemen.
Yeah, if you put the microphone right down there, and then you both can actually sit there, you'll be fine.
So let me know if you guys want me to share anything, I guess if the plans or anything, I'll put that up on the screen.
Good evening, Mr. Katz.
I,
You've indicated that you reside at 411 Main,
correct.
and I've indicated in the opening that that is a mixed-use situation. We have a Far Hills Pharmacy and your residence, is that correct?
Correct.
When did you first purchase the property?
Somewhere around 1989, 88, somewhere around there, I'm not sure exactly.
And just for the record, your relationship to 405 Main LLC is?
I own 405
You're the managing member?
Correct.
Are you the sole member?
Yes.
And you reside in part of the property?
In the rear of the house. I do not own the pharmacy anymore.
But you're referring to the business, correct? You own the property?
Correct.
Okay. And with whom do you reside?
My wife and my son.
Now, you said you don't own the business anymore. Did you own it at one time?
Yes, up until a couple of years ago.
Just let's give the board a little bit of a background. So back in 1994, you were here before, obtained a variance primarily for additional parking. Is that accurate? Or was there other components to it?
We had some commercial back there when it wasn't a house. When we first bought it, we used it as a house, then we switched it to commercial, and now we switched it back to a house, residence.
Okay. And at that time, you needed more parking than was required, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is that still the case?
No, I think the pharmacy requires about 22 or 22 parking spaces. I don't remember exactly how many we have, but we have many more than that.
Okay. And since you live on site, obviously you have the ability to observe what's done physically, how many parking spaces are actually used on a regular basis.
Well,
Is the parking lot typically full at this point?
not since the testing is over, all that COVID testing.
Okay.
And-
Setting aside COVID testing, which
Right.
is certainly going to be
That
peak, I'm
was-
sure.
That was a mess, but now it's hardly ever full.
Okay.
I mean, it's never full now.
Okay.
There's just, the spots in front of the house are mostly empty.
And the house has a two-car garage attached, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what are you proposing for the property that brings us here this evening?
Well, I want the garage to house the snowplow truck that I have, snow blower equipment. I have a disability scooter for myself with a trailer. I want to put that in there, and then my wife has also a disability scooter.
Okay. And other than storage of these items, will there be anything else in the building?
Just storage, garage type of storage.
Any kind of a workshop or anything along those lines?
Maybe some type of workbench and some tools and stuff, but nothing major. I can't do much, so.
Okay. Is electricity proposed for the building?
Yes, definitely electricity, plumbing, I don't think so. But it's just gonna be a freeze hazard.
Is there an upper area at all? Is there any kind of an attic space, or will it be completely open?
No, I think it'll be mostly open, no upstairs.
Now, we've submitted to the board a sheet from spec sheet, for lack of a better word, from Stolfa Structures, I believe in Pennsylvania, is that right?
Correct.
Understood the sizing might not be the same, but generally speaking, does that portray what you're proposing?
Yes, Correct.
And it's a modular unit, 2 units that'll be merged together.
Connected together.
Now, there is a discrepancy, which we realize, between Mr. Madison's footprint and my narrative. I believe the engineer plans reflect a 24 by 36 foot footprint. I believe in my narrative I said 24 by 32. Is either of those accurate, or do you know at this point?
We don't know exactly, but that's the approximate size, give or take.
It would not be larger than what Mr. Madison
No,
shows, correct?
Definitely not be large.
So if the board grants us relief this evening, based upon that, we'll be covered in that sense.
Correct.
Yeah, I know.
Currently, there is, correct, a shipping container on the property?
Yeah, for storage.
And what's in there?
Has shovels and, stuff from the garage that won't fit in the 2-car garage, because we have 2 cars. And just supplies, shovels, salt buckets, some recycling containers, garbage cans, garage type of stuff.
Okay. If the board approves this application and you're able to construct your 2-car garage, will that shipping container go away
Yes, definitely.
immediately?
I'm paying for a rental on it every month.
Understood. Just briefly, the Historic Preservation Commission did review this application, and you understand that there were certain stipulations made to get their approval, correct?
Yes,
I just want to go through them for the record.
okay.
Just please confirm that you're agreeing to those. So the first one is that the siding, trim, window, door, and roofing materials will substantially match those that are used in the main building.
Correct.
And you agree to that?
Yes,
They also asked that the gables of the garage, of course, the gable end faces Route 202, so it's visible from the street, would have the same shingle design and color scheme as the building. So the main building is a blue color, and the gables are like a beige. Is that accurate?
correct, scallops, yeah.
And scallops shingles, and you're willing to do that with the garage as well, so they match.
Yes,
They also asked that the garage doors and the man door be the same beige color as the gable. You're okay with that?
no problem.
Finally, that they asked that the garage doors be of a style that's consistent with the historic nature of the neighborhood. And I think candidly, you would agree that the doors on the house do not. They're a modern design, right? But they are not facing the street, so they can't be seen.
Correct.
Do you have any problem with using some kind of historic character doors
No.
for the garage?
Not at all.
And I have nothing further for Mr. Katz at this time.
Open it up to the board. Any questions for Mr.
I
Katz?
have a quick question.
Yes.
If this was to be approved, would you agree to stipulation that there would be no living quarters in this garage and that the shipping container would be removed?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
no problem.
Anyone else on the board? No? No?
Madam
Okay.
Chairman, I did have a couple of questions,
Oh, absolutely.
and they relate to my letter. I'm trying to figure out how this building works. Because generally, when you have a building with a gable, the ridge runs down the long axis of the building. Okay? That would be in this case, or in the exhibit you submitted, it was front to back or north to south would be the ridge. Now, the plan shows a building oriented the other way where it's wider than it is deeper. So the ridge would traditionally run east to west instead of north to south. So if this building is wider than it is deep, you kind of get a bit of a funky shape as to how that lays out. So I think that's important to look at a building, because what happens is, because you've got the ridge running the other direction, the peak goes up higher, the wider the building is. And now if the building is up to 36 feet wide, that's 50% wider than it is deep. And so you've got this, I haven't seen many buildings where the ridge runs perpendicular to the long axis. And I know there's some architects up there that probably are following what I'm saying, but I don't understand.
So Paul, I assumed the pitch would change on the roof
Well,
if
then
it got
that's-
wider as opposed to the
Right.
roof getting taller.
Well, that's not what this plan says. The plan gives a specific pitch to the roof.
712, which is kind of typical.
Which is standard, which is kind of a historic pitch, kind of a roof. You don't want to get too flat because it kind of looks.
And it's kind of standard for snow relief.
Right,
that kind of stuff.
right. So it's, I just want to understand exactly what's going on. Is that what we're going to have?
Maybe our engineer would be able to answer these questions? No?
I'm
No.
not sure, why is it so indeterminate about what the size of this building is?
Yeah, that's a question I have.
Can we, you got two garage doors that are 8 feet wide, the typical garage bay is, approximately
10 or
11 to 12 feet wide. So why does it need to be up to 36 feet wide? Right, across the,
And that's what I was trying to get, because it's wide enough for three garage doors. And it's shown being built as a modular structure. So it's coming in as a modular structure, and it's 36 feet wide, it's gonna be 3 bays, but then you can't get the pitch up in the middle because it just doesn't come together that way.
Mr. Katz, I don't want to speak for you, so correct me if I'm wrong. I believe originally you were contemplating a 3-bay garage, or at least a substantially wider than just the 2 doors, is that
Right,
right?
right. I wanted it to be 2.5 bays, so there was room for the trailer and the scooter and stuff, so I just wanted 2 garage doors.
2 garage doors and then an extra.
Extra little bit for the snow blower, the trailer,
And I understand that, I just don't know how the building comes together.
the plan that Stolfus supplied.
The Stolfus plan just shows the 2 doors without the extra,
Okay.
essentially.
Yeah, just like a 20 by 20 building, pretty much.
Mr. Farrar, would that
Yeah.
trigger any additional variance
22
relief
by
that we don't have
22.
height issues or anything under the ordinance, do we?
I don't know if it creates any height issues, but it becomes a building that looks different than the HPC approved. Because I'm assuming they looked at this, it shows the 2 garage doors, it doesn't show another door next to that, whether it's a man door, or I don't know if the rest of the building is just gonna be.
The man doors around the side.
So you're gonna have 2 garage doors and nothing but wall to the right of it.
To the left, I think, would be where the extra space would be.
no, both sides, just in one of the bays?
Right.
Okay, because then your garage door on the right starts to maybe conflict with some of the parking stalls to get in and out.
That's been adjusted in Mr. Matson's plan, so he can address that.
Okay.
Some of the parking spaces are being removed as well.
Right, it's just, I'm thinking if you're trying to get a trailer in there and you're trying to make it around that corner.
It's not a big trailer.
Okay.
It just fits the scooter and that's it. So it's like maybe 4 foot by 6 foot trailer, and I move it by, pushing it. It's a lightweight trailer. It's not hard to move, but we can adjust it. However, this is what they had to send me.
Right, but the prototype that they give you, that they show you here, can't be built the way you want it. It can only be 28 feet wide. If you want 30 feet wide or 36 feet wide, it's gonna have to be 3 modules.
Well, that's assuming that that these are the maximum size modules.
Well, if you're gonna get it over the road
Okay.
in a trailer and haul it to the site, you're not gonna get much wider than 14 feet.
So that gives, 14 gives us 20.
Yeah. But if only one side needs to be wider, then it's a 12-foot wide unit and a 14-foot wide unit. And if the doors are situated, now the doors would be custom located, or the openings for the doors come prefabricated, and when you...
Yeah, they would be prefabricated.
Centralized.
So you're gonna get 2 modules, one maybe a little bit larger than the other, with doors centered in each of those modules, garage doors centered in each of those modules, and the access for the man door would be around the side.
Correct.
All right, so now with 2 modules of different sizes, the pitch is gonna be one side is gonna be a little bit lower, right? Potentially.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm just thinking, that if we, you know, really, I gotta talk to Stoltzfus about it, but I would think we could, you know, do the 28-foot and have
Yeah.
the extra space, you know, maybe we have to do the extra space on both sides, you know, to even it out so that it's symmetrical.
What is the, I'm not. I would tell you that makes it a whole lot easier for them to manufacture and deliver and put it on the site.
Right.
Otherwise, you get something that's a little bit,
And that is what HPC approved, was the gable with the 2 doors.
Right.
and a little bit of extra width in each of those modules, I don't think is a big deal. But if you have a large blank area on one side, it's really a bit of a different look.
Yeah, I got you. I don't think that's gonna be a problem.
You really need to have the two modules need to be the same size. Right.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, sort of like that. So 2 14-foot wide modules, and on the site plan, how many? Because the thing you got from the, prefabricated structure guy is indeterminate, right? What are we saying on the site plan is the depth of this building? 24, which
Okay,
so we have a 28-foot wide building and a 24-foot deep wide building. There's not that much difference.
That's not much of a difference.
Where the gable kind of works running the short side, short dimension.
But if it was 36 by 24, then
That would be good, yeah. Can you live with 28 wide by 24 deep?
Yeah, that's not a problem. I can definitely do 28 feet.
If I could just say something for a second. I own, my home is a 2.5 car garage. It's symmetrical with 2 doors, and then there's sort of like a bump out extra side piece that where I put my snow blower and all that. So maybe they can give you 3 modules, 2 equal symmetrical with 1 sort of on the side that attaches as a separate half
Like a
garage.
shed roof
It
on
must be a
Yes, like
shed,
a shed,
yeah.
There's a shed roof on it.
That's
But
what-
that goes back to the HPC then.
Right, but I'm saying it's
Yeah,
an option.
there's
It's an option,
different ways to do it.
If you could at least get him an extra space that he needs for the snow blower and all that stuff, because
Yeah, I think 28 foot, usually the garage doors are what, 10 foot?
8, usually
8 foot? So that gives me plenty of room, I think, extra room.
Well, I think this plan says 9, no?
It says 9.
It says 9. Yeah, even so. But that gives you,
So 10 feet total.
but if each module is, they give you like 2.5 feet on each side if it's centered.
Right.
You could put your car in slightly to the center if there's no, it's just without poles? You have to have
It's
poles?
actually showing a stud wall there. It's a wall inside.
Yeah, there's a partial wall.
Partial wall?
Yeah.
If you could move those doors to the center, that would give you
More room on
more
the
room
outside.
on either side. I don't know if they give you that flexibility.
But are you comfortable with the 28 total
Yeah,
width?
yeah, that's not a problem.
28 by,
That should be enough room.
28 by 24?
28 by 24, Mr. Katz?
Right, yeah.
Jim, does that work for your engineering, Jim Mattson? There's a 28 by 24.
It's smaller than what he shows on his plan.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
So all the numbers in Michelle are incorrect with the proposed.
Right.
Well, then the question is, for setback purposes, where, now we have a narrower building, so are we leaving it in the same proximity to the sideline, and your gap between the buildings increases, or do you keep that gap the same and your side yard increases?
Is there a way we can do that where we can minimize the setbacks too?
Well, that's what I'm saying, if you move it closer to the house, if you keep the line between the house and the building the same, then your setbacks are going to be increased.
I would anchor the west side of the building and move the east side in. Gives you further from the side property line.
Mm-hmm, sounds right.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, they're both variances, so it's...
Plan west. Plan west.
Yeah.
Well, it's just the property faces south.
Yeah.
So keep the distance between the existing home and the new home, the new building the same.
Right.
You're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Okay, any more questions from the board? Anyone online, on Zoom?
I think I have a question. I just want to confirm that we're talking about the gable going off to the, straight down as it is in this picture, and 2 doors right in front, equal distant, as was shown at HPC the other night?
Yes.
Okay.
We don't know where, yet we don't know exactly where the extra space will be, but it'll be centered one way or the other, so you won't have.
It'll be centered one way or the other, because that is what faces the street.
Correct. No, there's no question that the gable end is the critical end, because that's what's visible.
Right.
Okay. No one else, Jean? Ginny? Okay,
And we call Mr. Madison.
okay.
Mr. Madison, you've already been qualified as an expert in the field of professional engineering. And did you prepare the plans that were submitted to the board for this application?
Our firm did, yes.
Okay, under your supervision?
Yes.
And would you please take us through the plans?
Certainly, as you had indicated, the property address is 405 Main Street. The property itself is .83 acres in size, of which .72 acres is in the VN zone and .111 acres is in the R3 zone. Currently on the property, there is a pharmacy in the front with the two-story residence to the rear. There are also 37 paved parking spaces and 2 parking spaces in the garage for a total of 39. Current lot coverage on the property is, in the VN zone, is 63.66%, where 50 is allowed. Current lot coverage in the R3 zone is 37.82%, where 15 is allowed.
And these coverages were permitted by variance from 1994, or something like that?
Very close to what was permitted. I don't think they're exactly, I think you had mentioned the one was 63, 65. And actually, we've calculated it to be 63, 66, so within measurable. So I'm going to say the combined zone coverage for the entire property is 60.33%. What is being proposed is a two-bay garage, which would be constructed in the R3 portion of the property. We would lose 2 parking spaces. There would be 3 lost along the easterly side of the parking lot adjacent to where the garage is going. That would allow for vehicles to back out of the garage and make a K-turn. We are also losing 1 spot that exists in front of the residence, but we are gaining 2 additional spots in the garage itself. So the net there is total of 37, a loss of 2 spaces. We're also removing 6 evergreen trees scattered throughout. They have X's through the trees as you look at the site plan drawing. Now, I had calculations for proposed lot coverage, but with the reduction in the building size, they are somewhat irrelevant now. And I haven't had the time to recalculate based upon the 24 by 28 building, but I can tell you they would be less than the 64 or 63.46% in the BN zone, and less than 51.1% in the R3 zone. And the combined would be less than 61.87 compared to the existing of 60.33. So, I mean, it may be relatively close to what currently exists on the property. Obviously, we need a variance for lot coverage. And let's see, to compensate for the increase in the coverage that had previously been proposed, we were showing the installation of a dry well, capture runoff from the roofed area of the new garage.
And I know this might be difficult to describe, but can you give a rough idea what's already there? Because it's fairly unusual, isn't it, the storm drain situation?
A series of dry wells as well as some underground piping underneath the parking lot.
And that was all part of the 1994 plan?
I don't think it was all, excuse me, the 94 plan, but over the course of time, the different features had been installed, different stormwater control features. And as previously discussed, the additional variances that are required for the rear 50 feet is allowed in the R3 zone. We are proposing 10.1 foot to the rear of the garage. The distance to the sideline, 40 feet is required, 22.54 is proposed, but that would be increasing now to 30.54 with the 28 by 24 foot building. The distance to the other building that's greater than 1,000 square feet is not changing. 50 feet is required and 31.55 feet is proposed. That's along the westerly side. And as Mr. Zelli had indicated, that if this R3 zone were instead in the BM zone, we would not need any variances for any of the setbacks, and possibly not the lot coverage, depending on how the calculations work out.
Well, at the least, it wouldn't be, possibly not worse than what was permitted by variance previously.
Correct. And let's see, we are proposing landscaping. I know Mr. Ferrero indicated in his memo that he didn't see anything, but it was on sheet 3 in the upper right-hand corner. We show a footprint of a building with 10.
Oh, I see it now. Sorry about that. Looking for it on the site plan.
Yep. And there you have it.
Okay. And you mentioned Mr. Farrar's report. Did you review this report in its entirety?
Yes, I did.
And is there anything in it that has not been addressed already?
I don't believe so. He wanted our drywall detail modified, and there's certainly not an issue with that. And that was
So nothing with which we cannot comply?
nothing in there to prevent us from complying, right?
Okay. And did you also have occasion to review Mr. Banish's April 28th planning review?
Yes, I did. There was really nothing in there other than he comments about whether or not we had looked at other footprints, building footprints, to better fit the R3 zone requirements. And I think as previously discussed this evening, there's been modifications. To fully comply with setbacks, we wouldn't be able to, because the distance from the easterly sideline to the nearest building is 90 feet, 90 plus feet. And if you consider side yard setbacks of 40 feet and 40 feet, that would allow you perhaps a 10-foot wide building, which really doesn't satisfy with the application Mr. Katz is seeking.
Thank you. Anything further for Mr. Madison at this time?
I think there's a mistake on here as far as the residence. It says there's 7,000 square feet, and I don't think that's quite right. In the, on your chart, it just says,
Is that for the whole building, pharmacy and the residence?
is that everything? It
Yes.
says residence, not pharmacy. If you just look at that. I mean, it has nothing to do actually with the application. It's just that I think that it's wrong.
Did you
that number.
generically refer to the whole building as the residence? Is that?
I have to look at the plan to confirm that.
Yeah, it says, I think what you're doing, Madam Chair, is you're adding up the pharmacy first and second floor, the residence first and second floor, and that total is the total.
Oh, the
of
total
four numbers.
of plus the pharmacy,
It's the four
okay.
numbers above.
Okay, I got it.
That's
It just,
totally
it looked like,
Right, it looks like it's just adding up the residents.
yes,
adding
right,
up the
exactly.
pharmacy as well.
Yeah, okay. I just didn't want the mistake to come. Okay. Anybody else on the board?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Rich.
Just lot 12 in the rear, 13-acre parcel,
Right.
Mhm, yeah.
and that says 11 Field Road is the address, or no? We're doing this wrong.
That may just be the owner's
So what is
taxing
that?
address.
That's completely undeveloped tract, correct?
Yes. That's the part of the Layton.
Okay,
It's
so
475 Main Street is that lot 12. I think there's two lot 12s.
that's part of the Layton tract that runs behind us? Okay, so now, based on the changes that we discussed in terms of the size of the building I'm having a really hard time reading it at this scale, but that 10-foot dimension now goes to what?
That doesn't change.
Didn't we shorten the building to 24 feet?
It is 24
The
feet.
depth is 24 feet.
Right, but that, because that line runs at a bit of an angle, that 10.1 will be something a little larger than 10.1. Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Right.
I don't think it can be determined on the fly. Okay. Unless Jim's trigonometry is better than mine. And then the 24 foot on the west boundary, where the 22 goes to 26-ish, maybe? Yeah. Right? So the side yard, the relief that you're looking for with respect to the side yard and the rear yard variances would be less than requested. Yeah, all right, I'm just trying to get there.
Right.
Okay. In looking at the plan, you said there's trees, 2 trees coming out? I count 6 trees coming out, no?
No, I
He said 6.
You said 6? 6,
Mhm.
okay, all right. All right. Now, I think we have another question about nomenclature that you're using. So you're also looking for bulk relief for lot coverage and FAR, or that was already granted?
FAR is already granted, and as long as this building is unheated, it doesn't change the FAR.
Okay, so the fact that we're adding 600 some odd feet.
Doesn't change the FAR.
Not changing the
This is
FAR,
not an
because it's a garage and it's an accessory structure.
And just to make the record clear, Mr. Katz, you're not proposing to heat this building, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. That may need to be a condition, correct, sir?
Yeah.
Can I ask, maybe you know the answer, Paul, maybe Tom, you know the answer. Why do we have this silly sort of split lot zone?
Well, I don't know this particular one, although maybe.
Mr. Madsen can testify to that.
I mean, I think I understand.
It's very, it was a minor subdivision to square off the lot, basically, right?
Right, there was the square in the back was part of the Layton property, and in order to expand the parking, I think Mr. Katz approached Layton's. Right. And purchased that portion to fill in.
So when we changed the subdivision, we didn't change the zone line?
No, we can't.
You have to do the zoning ordinance, you have to revise the zoning ordinance to do that.
Yeah, remember,
Not unusual.
they were adding R3 land to VN.
No, I get it. I get it.
And
But why we wouldn't
it's such a
straighten it out
minor.
at that time, I don't
Yeah, and
understand.
the fact that the board at that time approved a variance for floor area ratio and maybe some sort of variances about the lot configuration, that does not change the zoning of the zone map.
And it was the Board of Adjustment that approved that, not the planning board, so the Board of Adjustment would need to do that.
So because the R3 is the minority, or
That's called being a split lot. That's
the lesser standard here, he's using the VN standard to apply all these.
Not exactly. He's explaining it to us, but interesting enough, he's giving us every relief item in each zone that he needs. And that, by the way, is encouraged in split lot case law, that you try to coordinate the split lots to allow them to be used, pretty generally speaking, in keeping with the larger portion of the lot. But it's not an automatic, it's your call, and theoretically, the zone line could be changed in some future zone map to make this all VN, but that has never been done. So it's kind of like such a de minimis thing, you barely even know it's existing.
Okay, that's all I had. Sorry.
We're removing 6 trees, but we're adding 10, is that what I read?
Yes, we noted 6 to be removed on the plan, and then on the detail sheet, we've shown 10 to be added.
Okay.
If I may, there is one question I wanted to ask Mr. Madsen that I neglected to do. Mr. Madsen, have you had opportunity to look at some aerial photography of this section of town?
Yes, I have.
And what did you see in terms of detached garages being present or not present on surrounding properties?
What the aerial showed, as well as visually, driving by, that the majority of the homes or lots in the area do have garages. And actually, if you look at the key map, you'll see the features to the rear of these properties on our side.
So what we're proposing then, in that sense, is fully in keeping with the surrounding neighborhood, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the board? Any more questions?
The existing garage on the site, does that serve the business
Residents.
or does that support the residents?
Residents.
Was it always that way?
Yes.
Should have.
Anyone on Zoom?
And the only other question I have is for Mr. Mattson. How close does this little piece of the R3 zone get to wetlands in terms of the river back that way?
I would say the river itself is probably a quarter mile away.
It is that far.
And that's, the river is to the east of the Layton's building, and we are up adjacent to the church almost, on top of the hill. So it's a significant distance.
Okay, thank you.
Church. The church. Janine?
No, there's not.
No, no one else? Okay. All right, I guess that's all, unless anybody has any more questions. No? Then I guess we're ready for a proposed resolution, Tom.
Okay, it's, the board will consider it's a motion to approve the CATS, or 405 Main Street LLC, C variance application and amended site plan. The approval is subject to the review reports of Paul and Frank and the comments and the conditions mentioned tonight. Mr. Mattson, could please provide the up-to-date measurements of the setbacks and the coverage and provide those to Paul and the board, to me, for the resolution. That would be convenient. And then the garage will be used as an accessory garage to the residence and will not be heated. It may have electricity and will not have plumbing and will not be used for an overnight occupancy or residential use.
I believe Mr. Katz's testimony was that he probably would not have plumbing. Would there be any objection to a half bath or something along those lines?
Well, I think that starts to make it as something that counts to its floor area ratio. That becomes a problem. Then you need a floor area ratio.
There is something other than heated that, even if they...
Because it becomes more than a storage building.
Okay. Mr. Katz, you're okay with that? You're okay with the condition that there would be no plumbing?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, thank you.
And they will comply with the conditions and that they agreed to comply with the Historic Preservation Commission. And this will be effective this evening, so the applicant is authorized to proceed effective immediately, provided all other requirements are met. Is there such a motion?
Motion.
I'll second. Tim.
Okay, Janine, do you want to roll call?
Mr. Travellini?
Aye.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. DeGiovanni?
Aye.
Ms. Oravana?
Aye.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Ms. Christie?
Aye.
Chairwoman Basham?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Motion
Have a wonderful
approved.
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yep. So we have anything further, Paul, to talk about?
We just have the 1525 Bedminster LLC application that is currently incomplete.
It's incomplete, okay. So we have nothing for next week, I understand, is that correct? So we have another vacation.
No meeting next week?
No? No, so we're first week in June.
Thank you.
Well, we're doing our job, we're doing what we're supposed to do, so. Okay, so do we have a motion to
I just
adjourn?
ha- I just have a
Oh, go
question.
right ahead.
Are we getting direct communication from the Historic Preservation Committee when they make approvals or recommendations? I don't know if I missed it on the website or not, I might have.
No.
But what they were reading to us about the Historic Commission, I wasn't aware of.
Well, I wasn't either, but Kathy is on the historical
That's why I'm
commission.
looking over that.
Yeah,
way.
exactly.
Right at it, right at it.
And I'm not sure that her meeting and her minutes can get approved in time for us to get them to us. And that, I think, is the problem. Now, I may be wrong, but that's what my understanding is. But having Kathy on the board helps us to know what historical commission has, has.
It's been an issue in a few
It has.
applications in the
It has,
past.
absolutely.
And I think maybe what we need to be more particular about is the fact that a certificate of appropriateness from the HPC is a requirement for an application in the historic district.
Could be.
So you could simply take the position, you're not going to hear it if they don't come with their certificate of appropriateness.
Okay.
That's a
That
good idea.
doesn't necessarily mean the minutes have been adopted, but at the meeting, the HPC could adopt it, could approve the certificate of appropriateness.
I can see that happening because I have the minutes for the next meeting because they haven't been approved yet.
Right.
So all this is all written out in the minutes, but it hasn't been approved.
But it should be put into the certificate of appropriateness,
Okay.
which could be done at the meeting before
Absolutely.
the minutes.
Absolutely.
Can't we just withhold our resolution until
Pending.
that administrative work is complete?
I honestly, I think.
I don't
that's
think
where
there's a
they-
need to on this
the
case.
cart before the horse, or vice versa, because we need that information in front of us sometimes to ask appropriate questions.
I think it depends on the application. This one here was probably not such,
This was an easy.
was easy.
No, but if they instructed them to do something and they've agreed to comply with that, and you just haven't memorialized your
Yeah.
certificate of appropriateness yet, then we have the benefit of, they think they got approval based on certain conditions.
And he
If you
stated.
never issue that.
Rich, they don't need to memorialize their certificate of appropriateness.
They don't?
That can be done at the meeting. And it's the next meeting when they adopt the minutes, but the minutes are not the same as the certificate of
So the-
appropriateness. At the meeting, they could do the certificate of
The
appropriateness.
certificate can happen that night.
Yes.
Just like, I think the environmental commission.
We had the list left at the meeting. We made the list, so that's in the minutes. But then it just is we're not meeting for a month.
Put it on the form. If you put it on the
Absolutely, that's
certificate of
all it is.
appropriateness form, sign it that night, then the applicant has it that night and can bring it
Yeah,
in.
so
If I could
we're
just
saying it's in the
bring
chain.
one example to light. The Country Picnic property, whatever, I
Okay.
don't remember what that's called, where the Historic Preservation Committee approved a pergola right almost on the street.
Yeah.
And then we knew when we looked at it, it just wasn't appropriate. Luckily, we had the information that night, if we didn't, we would have not really understood what that was and why it was approved.
And you directed the applicant to change that to be the way you preferred it.
That's correct.
And for them to go back to the Historic Preservation Commission to get that change approved.
Yeah.
And that worked out, but that shows what Lou's getting at, is you sort of have to know those conditions and what's the result before you
Right.
decide, because yours technically does control. You follow the advice.
But you can overrule them.
But
But
you
we
can
can
overrule the
Right.
advice of the Historic Preservation Commission. I don't think it's ever really happened, but basically.
Yeah.
Well, it did then.
Okay.
And I was also surprised that he was able to name every single thing
Right.
that we said. I had it written down here in order to make sure that it got into the resolution, but I was surprised he named them all. So he brought it to our attention.
Yeah.
And I think I think even the one with the gazebo, they informed us about the
Right,
detail, and
exactly.
gave us the detail, so.
What was that? Yeah. It's just a thought. I mean, if there's some way to increase the
Communication.
Communication.
Clarity. Yeah.
I think that's a good
I
The only
agree.
thing I could probably do is forward you the minutes, which would then have.
But if they're not
No,
approved,
but
it's not
I don't
approved
think,
yet.
I don't think it's the minutes.
Just
I
the
think it's the
appropriate-
certificate of appropriateness.
That's all.
That's what needs to come.
That could actually be
Okay.
handwriting. That could be handwritten by you, Kathy, or by a board member.
Wendy will handwrite.
Yeah,
I
Wendy.
did ask for it on April 27th, like, the week after the meeting, and I just got back from Caitlin, who oversees the meetings, that she hadn't gotten back the signed copy yet. So that's why I was saying if I had the minutes, I know it's not the minutes, at least it would have the detail. I get it if you want to.
Maybe,
share
maybe
certificates.
not.
Okay.
It's just like the resolution controls this board,
Right,
not the minutes.
Right.
right.
The certificate of appropriateness is the HPC's action and not their minutes.
I don't think that'll be a problem. I just think it has to be followed
Just has
up
to get
on by
done.
somebody. That's all. I don't think it'll be a problem. It just has to be followed up. for Wendy to do it. I mean, she's the one that would sign it and write it.
Right.
So do we do like, this is not meant to be a slur in any way whatsoever, but I use my archaic references. No ticky, no shirt. So if we don't have
The certificate of
the
appropriateness.
certificate, should we wait to hear it? Or should we
Oh,
just
certainly have the
wait to
ability to
pass
do
the
that.
resolution?
That's something you can decide to do, because the certificate of appropriateness is a completeness item.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
Okay,
exactly
we should wait to hear
before
it.
other
Yeah.
ones.
Well, but
Okay.
people, they try to move quickly at both, okay? They try to, and they're pretty good at it. I mean, they even go to the Environmental Commission, get a waiver or whatever they're supposed to do. You go to the Site Preservation, they know they should go to the HPC before they're here, and they try to. And that's what, if you're ever trying to make it easier on people,
We are trying to.
yeah, and then you have to, you try not, you have to be careful not to make.
But if Kathy's here and there's an honest mistake about interpretation, not to say that anybody's trying to get over on us, if there's an honest mistake about interpretation and Kathy's not here, what are we looking at?
Well, just so you're aware on the completeness, my completeness memo said, I don't have any objection to a waiver as long as the document's provided 10 days before the hearing.
Yeah, because I think there was a disagreement on the KRE project between us and HPC, wasn't there? About the way that building was being designed in the front. They want
Oh,
something
yeah, there was
different.
discrepancies for sure.
Yeah, so in a situation like that, I
And
think.
again, we didn't have that paperwork in front of us.
I think,
Right.
well, I
Right.
think what you're saying is absolutely appropriate. And I have to say, I've been on HPC, probably a couple of years. While I was on here, I was on that.
Right.
We hear every case, no matter how long it takes that night. If there's a case that's open, we sit there until all the cases are done. It's not a matter of carrying it from one month to month. So, the meetings are not that long, but we will hear whatever's current. But we only meet once a month.
Right, but
Right.
if the commission can get that document done that night, if you've made the decision, reduce it to writing that night and get it to Caitlin, who can get it to
To the ones that need to go to the
board.
land use board.
Because not all your applications go to the board.
Not, few go to the board. Since I've been on, only 3 or 4 have gone to the board.
And your projects are only within those districts too, right?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah,
Yeah,
Right,
right. It's not all
right.
it's mainly signage and windows and paint and,
outside things.
you know,
Yeah.
changing a porch. I mean, it's usually not a land use board situation.
Right. Okay, well, we'll try to improve that communication. I think it's important to
Third
do
It is,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it came up again in the league project.
Yeah, with that wall, yeah.
When I was there in the back of the room and came up to speak, and I was like, well, where's yours? I can't find your historic, and they're like, we went there, and there was nothing. There was no information at all.
Yeah, that was a, communication problem too.
So I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, no, you're right,
Good
Lou,
point.
and, but I knew Kathy and I had talked, so I knew it was taken care of tonight, so.
That's one of the reasons
Yeah.
why the mayor suggested that if I was on one, that I be on
On
the
the
other.
other.
To be able
Absolutely.
to listen to both.
Bridge.
Right.
All right, but
Or liaison.
I'm a liaison, I'm not carrying the official paperwork.
Right.
Right. Mhm.
The official
That's right.
paperwork needs to go from Wendy, the chair,
Right.
to
The
the
land use.
applicant.
Mhm. And the applicant, yes, absolutely.
And to land use.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll improve.
Do we generally schedule, like, Janine, do you generally schedule HPC to be a couple of weeks before the planning board is doing that case?
I don't schedule HPC, so.
No, I don't mean you, but.
It's
Yeah,
a
no,
third
but in
Thursday.
this case, I knew that Paul had it as a condition, so I know that when I spoke to Ira, and I'm gonna notice, well, his attorney, I said, well, you better make sure that you're on the HPC, gave him Caitlin's information. I said, because we can't hear you unless you're going for them. That was why I reached out to Caitlin, and she said it passed, but I did not have the certificate, and she still said, and she obviously hasn't gotten it back signed.
HPC is usually the third Thursday.
Third Thursday.
So that would be perfect time
Yeah, that's
to get us
good.
something.
Right.
For the
before
following month
the
first,
first-
yeah.
the first
That should work.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't even, I mean, if we're meeting on the third Thursday, then there's 2 weeks before the land use.
Yeah, so it shouldn't be
So
an
there,
issue.
it wouldn't even have to be done that night, it would just have to have the
Well,
certificate
if
by
it
the.
gets done that night, it's done.
Yeah, right. Okay, I'm not getting into that one.
It's 2 weeks later.
Okay,
And
I-
refresh my memory, how does it work with the environmental commission when that's required for an application? What's the timing on that? Is it a little earlier than that?
I don't even know when the environmental commission meets.
And usually it's like the first Wednesday of the month, I think, but I know that some of the applications have to go through them for, for an EIS or whatever, I mean, I would imagine that it's a similar way to handle that, even though they're talking about different things, that we need some stuff from them for the application, the same is true for HPC, you know what I mean? Sounds like it's, whatever we do with one could be the way we handle the other, in my opinion.
In this case, I don't necessarily think it was a big deal,
No.
but
No, it wasn't.
this drawing, this dimension, this gable, that's a little sloppy,
It was very slow.
right? Don't we typically want to have a little bit clearer understanding about, where the shiplap ends and where the scallop begins and all that kind of good
That was
stuff?
like a prototype
Well,
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't do an actual
Rich.
drawing,
It's complete. Doesn't mean it's right.
Okay.
And that's what happened at HPC
That's the
too,
test.
complete.
Ideally, we would have an architect here explaining the plan.
Well, and in a way, in single family, it's like a single family house owner asking to make a change.
Yeah.
They generally speaking can actually do that without an architect. I don't know how or why, but.
He's probably been here 25 times.
Right.
in the last 25 years.
I mean, he ordered, he got a cut sheet of the building and then asked the engineer to do it. That's what it sounds like to me.
He's gonna need an architect before he gets a permit.
Okay.
Rich, I think you should send the applicant your bill for that.
Well, it was the architect on HPC that gave him all these design things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, so the
Okay, I did not know
architect
that.
discussed the gable, discussed all that, and redesigned the building and gave him drawings of how it should be. Thus, he knew everything he needed to do, and that came from an architect.
Free design service.
Absolutely.
All right, we finished? I think we are. Motion to adjourn?
Yep. So maybe.
Okay,
I,
see you in June.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, to all the mothers, to all your mothers,
Mother's Days.
to all your mothers.
My mother on Saturday, her mother on Sunday.
Tim, you're gonna be busy on Monday.
Yeah.